Welcome to the show, Discover the Difference, brought to you by C3. I'm your host, Jamie Reed, alongside the ever-professional Gabriel Earl. If you thought insurance was sexy, hold on tight, folks, because we have the Senior VP of Government Affairs for the California Trucking Association today, Eric Sauer. We get to know Eric, his love of cars, sports, and his disobedient horse, as well as diving into the ever important advocacy that the CTA brings. I don't know if you think about it, but over 90% of the goods that we buy every day move on trucks in the United States. Advocacy for these companies on Capitol Hill is of utmost importance. Eric's going to take us on a journey so that we get to understand that work a little bit better. So enjoy this podcast with Eric Sauer. Eric Sauer, the Senior Vice President of the California Trucking Association. Welcome, man. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, guys.
Hey, let's take a step back in Eric's life. I don't actually know this about you. Will you give us a little context on what life was like for you growing up, where you grew up, and kind of what your family life was like in the early stages of life?
Sure. Love to. I was born and raised in Sacramento, in a suburb in Sacramento called Carmichael. My mother still lives in the house that I was born and raised in. Lifelong Sacramento, well, not lifelong resident anymore because I recently moved, but born and raised in Sacramento, went to high school at El Camino High School in Sacramento, went to college at Sac State, and lived around out and about in Sacramento area, Midtown and downtown area. And then about 12 years ago, I moved up to Amador County to a small town called Dry Town. Oh, I should note that I did go to a Catholic junior high school called Presentation, and I had to wear green corduroys and a white Izod shirt every day. But we did have a dress down day once a month. And if you want to learn the most embarrassing story about me later on in this show, I'll tell you about my Miami Vice attire an incident of when I wore Don Johnson lookalike to Dress Down Friday in Catholic school. One of the most embarrassing stories of my life, actually.
So is that, do you have Irish roots? Is that where you were in the green, or that was the dress code?
That was the school uniform at the Catholic school I went to. Green corduroys. And you could only find them in one store in Sacramento area called Joe Son's Jeans, which used to be on K Street Mall, which long time ago, it's no longer there, and a white Izod shirt. And I actually blended the first version of Air Jordans with those green pants and white Izod shirt. So that's taking you back a few years. I think it was like 83 or 84.
I'm sure Michael would have been proud of that combo.
Hey, back in the day, I wasn't too bad at hoops. I probably was the same height. I had what they called credit card hops, which about, 6 inches off the ground. But yeah, I had some moves back then, but no longer.
Well, there's a lot of sports memorabilia on the wall there behind you. When you were a kid, is that what you thought you'd do? You have aspirations of being a pro athlete or otherwise?
Yeah, a little bit, as you're younger, and I was always into sports. I was a huge Pittsburgh Steeler fan, huge Golden State Warrior fan until we got the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento. And then I've always been a Giants fan as well. And I was always really into sports, had a huge obscene amount of trading cards. Actually was so into the Steelers. For grade school, we had to do like a Easter Bunny cutout, and I made my Easter Bunny cutout a Franco Harris Easter Bunny. So it was number 32, Steeler jersey, Steeler helmet, yellow gold pants, Easter Bunny ears out the helmet. So that takes me back to, I think, third grade. So longtime Steeler fan.
Nice. You also, are those cars or trucks or something on your bookshelf back there?
Oh, those are That's my expansive collection of die-cast diesel trucks. So over the years, I've acquired them, and in some cases, I've mooched them off of our members. They call me the mooch because I always ask them for stuff. And I was building a collection of trucks of our members' trucks because they, will do those for promotional items and get them built. And over the years, I'll be visiting in their office and I'll see that they make those for their company. And I'll ask them, hey, can I get a truck for my collection? And they graciously have always sent me a truck for the collection. So yeah, if you're ever in the office in Sacramento and you ever want to play around with little trucks, just come into my office. And
you have a favorite one in there?
What was that?
You have a favorite truck over there?
I can't say because then I'll upset our members. And I love them all. They're all my favorite. It's really hard. It's really hard for me to pick and choose. So, but they're all beautiful trucks.
That's answered like a guy who's VP of Government Affairs and knows how to
very political,
very PC.
Yep.
So talk to us about that a little bit. As in your position, you're obviously very involved in political lobbying, but you also had a heavy interest in sports growing up, and you still do. You're very involved. And then I know you have an affinity for cars and trucks and all that. Like, in sixth grade, did you just write down that this is what you wanted to be when you grow up? Or how does your journey take you from where you were as a kid to becoming the senior VP of the CTA?
Well, it's funny you ask that because my mom just recently found some pictures of me when I was in, I believe, fifth grade. And I remember this. Her friend was dating a senior executive for Viking Freight Systems, which they got purchased by FedEx years ago. And my mom would always take me to their truck rodeo. And it's their skills competition for drivers driving trucks. And a lot of companies back in the day would have their own truck rodeos, trucking contests and truck driver contests. And so I went to those every year. She found these pictures of me. I had the Viking Freight System hat on and my buck teeth and feather cut. So it's, quite a few years ago, but I've always been intrigued by trucks. I was a big BJ and the Bear TV show fan. I've just always been fascinated by trucks. And lo and behold, back in 2000, I had an opportunity to come to CTA, the California Trucking Association, and started out as their legislative analyst because I always had an interest in politics. I took some political science and government courses all throughout college and was hired as their legislative analyst back in 2001. And kind of over the years, been here almost 20 years, coming up on 20 years, August 1st. And just kind of worked my way up the association ladder, so to speak, and really enjoy being here. Obviously, almost 20 years, that speaks volumes of, how much I enjoy being here. I just really, really appreciate representing trucking company owners. I mean, our members are just fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because, that's, trying to earn points or anything. I really appreciate you're talking, a lot of these companies, they're family owned. We have some fourth generation ran companies. They're just really good salt of the earth people, really love their employees, very family oriented, appreciate hard work. They're just great people to represent. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed my time here. And just, I really enjoy hearing their stories of how they got started. And it's a lot of them started with one truck and they grew their fleets to, Bob Massman, Dependable Highway Express, who's one of my, favorite members, close personal friend of mine, huge sports fan. His father started with one truck and they are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, family-owned trucking company that's left in California. So a lot of respect to those members, and not to mention operating in California with all its regulatory hurdles and impediments that, pop up, that, kind of hinder their ability to maneuver through those is, I tip my hat to these members that just continue to just do such a fantastic job in the trucking industry.
So it sounds like there was this evolution that happened, from an early age in, fifth grade, where you kind of enamored by trucks and then, grew into this position where now you feel really connected to the members. What was it that what was that beginning part that really, drove you or passionate or excited about, trucks? Because obviously there's a whole story now behind, what trucks represent, but what was it that, that beginning stage for you?
It's back in back in the 70s, and I'm kind of dating myself. Actually, almost going to be 50 at the end of August, unfortunately. But back in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, it was the industry there was just great movies, and it was just such a big deal, the trucking industry. And you saw really cool movies. It was very glamorous, as a kid watching these TV shows and movies. You're just, in these big cab over trucks, these big massive trucks that are rolling down the road, and, the paint schemes on them. And I was just always fascinated by the industry. And then you see so many different segments of the industry. It's not just, the typical truck and trailer. You see all sorts of different types of trucks rolling down the freeway with hauling like big cranes or bulldozers or, containers and whatnot. But it's always been a fascinating industry to me. There's so many nuances that go into the trucking industry. It's not, people see a truck, but that truck was, it's been somewhere to pick up the load, and it's going somewhere to drop off the load. And there's just so many different routes they have to take. And it's just such a, fascinating industry to me. And it always has been.
Was that movie over the top? Is that what hooked you?
No, but that was a good one.
It hooked me.
Well, who was the bad guy? The Blaster or whatever?
I just remember Sylvester Stallone. That's all I remember.
Yeah, Blaster was the guy with the mohawk, I think. So yeah, that was a good.
Well, I think what you're touching on though is important, right? Most people don't think about when they drink their coffee or they put on their shirt how integral the trucking association or the trucking industry is to that. And you referenced it at a high level that in California, it's tough to balance between what happens as a state and how it impacts that industry. And so what's going on around environmental concerns, around labor law concerns, it's really threatening the trucking company owners. And so can you talk about what it is that the CTA is doing for its members and why are members attracted to participate in this group?
Sure. So it's kind of funny. I always use this, the trucking industry was deregulated back in the 80s. And so it's always, for a deregulated industry, this industry is subject to so many regulations. So it's just kind of a funny, wait, I thought we were deregulated and now there's all these regulations. But yeah, you're correct. In California in particular, we've had our fair share and deal with environmental regulations that, a few years back required the industry to essentially do away with their trucks and upgrade to a cleaner diesel truck, whether with a particular filter or just, or purchasing a new truck. And then also labor laws and regulations that are, have been really, difficult to navigate through. But this industry is just, there's a lot of hurdles. And in particular in California, there's a lot of hurdles that these members and the trucking industry in particular have to navigate through. You saw the Assembly Bill 5, the independent contractor bill that was in response to the California Supreme Court Dynamics decision. And so there was that bill that was introduced that ultimately was signed by the governor. Unfortunately, the trucking industry wasn't able to more or less get an exemption from that. We did work extremely hard with the legislature to work on getting some sort of exemption from that bill. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And what our board decided to do after that was start looking towards a litigation pathway. And so we did file suit immediately following the bill's passage and signature. And at the last second before the bill was supposed to go into law, we were granted an injunction by the district court down in Southern California. So currently the trucking industry, you cannot enforce AB 5 on the trucking industry. It's being appealed. It was appealed by the state and the Teamsters in September. It was heard by a three-panel judge through the U.S. District Court of Appeals, Ninth Circuit, and we're currently awaiting that decision. But as of right now, AB 5 does not apply to the trucking industry. But I mean, it's been, the industry has been dealing with labor issues for many years. And so, the long answer to your question is there is a lot of regulatory issues that the industry is, constantly battling on and fighting. And that's where we come into play, the Trucking Association.
So you've been in this now for 20 years. Can you talk a little bit about, how the association has changed over that time? And how do you continue to stay energized just because, you're thrown with so many, you talked about all the obstacles and the regulations and how challenging it is to, be a trucker in California. How do you, continue your energy with all those challenges?
Well, the funny joke is that, the members have said this over the years when there's just all these regulations that they're facing and that we have to work on and fight on behalf of the membership for is, well, it keeps you employed. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, you got to work on those things. Well, that's true, I guess. But the frustrating is there's, you feel for these members and their companies and, you just want to kind of hit your head against the wall when these things are popping up. But, there's just a constant, it's California and there's a lot of stuff going on and, it blows. What the old saying is, what happens in California blows eastward. And so when I attend American Trucking Association conferences and we're in their policy committee meetings, they seem to always, unfortunately, talk about California issues. Those are dominating in their meetings and they're always on the agenda of their policy committee meetings. And I usually, if I'm not on one of the committees, I'll sit in the back of the room with like a Groucho Marx disguise on and kind of hide my face because it's, hey guys, unfortunately it did start in California. It's migrating eastbound. So, it's just a sign of the times.
With AB 5 that you were talking about, I don't, as I'm out interacting with trucking companies, I don't think everybody in the industry understands that the CTA almost single-handedly handed the entire industry this amazing gift. But to the point that you just made, do you think that by being a member of the association, when that kind of gift isn't handed and there's a tough regulation like CARB where companies have to come into compliance with it, that it is sort of a leveling up and can be used as an advantage to your members because there's so much educational information that you all put out to help your members be on the forefront of it, where non-CTA members that are out in the industry at large, they may fall by the wayside, go bankruptcy, get hit with large fines that put them out of business because they don't understand what's going on or they're catching it super late and they're not able to adapt timely.
Yeah. So if, kind of the easy answer to that question is if there's no association that is representing an industry and a regulation or law passes like that, no one's going to challenge it, or they could, but it's very, it's a huge financial investment to file litigation. But if you don't have an association for that specific type of industry, you need associations to fight on behalf of those industries. And, to your point about being a member of CTA and the benefits of what it provides is, I'll talk about our Vice President of Government Affairs, Chris Shimoda. He is one of the smartest people I've ever, worked around, and I've had the privilege to working with him for 14 years. He's been all over some of these environmental regulations since the get-go. And he's been updating our members. He's been working with regulatory agencies on these regulation proposals and whatnot. And he's been at the forefront of that for years since he's been here. And just him updating the membership along the way for so many years on these things that sometimes do come to fruition, that kind of gives members and the industry kind of I don't want to say a leg up, but they are in the know. And at that point with their business, if things do, happen to be approved as a regulation or a law, they kind of started down the pathway to see how they can work their businesses to operate under these proposals and how it can, kind of make them have the ability to navigate and be successful. And so being in the know is always key and critical. And it's just, having that information at your disposal and knowing that your organization and association is going to be there to fight on your behalf is critical and key.
Yeah, I think we want to learn a little bit about what the CTA did with COVID, but I want to go down a little rabbit hole with you because I noticed you're wearing your CUI shirt. Talk to us, because I was telling Gabe before we had this, as we were prepping for our podcast with you here, I'm like, Eric is the best dressed guy at every CTA event I go to. He's going to be in a really nice looking suit. He's dialed to the nines, and I see you're wearing CUI. So I know you have a personal connection to the brand. Will you talk to us about that for a second?
Yeah, sure. Would love to, actually. And it's pronounced Kuyu, but that's okay because over the years, people have always pronounced it so many different ways.
That's what you get from a non-hunting guy.
Yeah, I'm non-hunting myself, but they just, yeah. So, I appreciate you bringing that up, Jamie. So Kuyu is a ultralight hunting clothing line that my close personal / best friend, Jason Hairston, founded. Actually 10 years ago. They're having their 10-year anniversary. He literally created the ultralight hunting clothing line. Like, he started Sitka, and then he moved over to Kuyu and founded Kuyu, and literally created a market that never existed before. And I remember back in the day talking about fashion and clothes, Jamie, he was telling me what he wanted to do. And he said, I think I'm going to start getting into designing and starting a clothing line for hunting clothes. And I'm like, well, why? Because I'm not a hunter. And he said, you just don't understand. Like, it's the clothes that they wear. They're just not comfortable. And, we kind of use the word turbo, like they aren't turbo, like cool to wear. And he wanted to make a really cool, comfortable, athletic kind of fit type of clothes for hunters. And this thing just blew up. I mean, Kuyu it's done extremely well. He was always on MSNBC and Squawk Box. Some outdoor magazines interviewed him. He literally created this huge market that I think if you look at the list of customers of Kuyu, there's just the who's who of athletes and musicians and actors and, people that are just really into hunting, really appreciate what he put forth. And unfortunately, he passed away back in 2018, and think about him all the time. He was one of my closest best friends for 25 years, and just really happy to see what he created, the amount of people he employs or the company employs now, and they've done extremely well. And it's just a really, really good product, and really happy for him and his family for what they started, and miss him every day. He was such a great guy.
So what do you think the secret of his success, and how has it impacted you, his legacy?
He was just one of those guys that just super energetic. We called him the super back in college. He went to Davis. I went to Sac State, but we had a mutual friend that he played football with, and I became friends with him through there. But we called him the super, like after Superman, because this guy's a stud. All-time tackle leader at UC Davis, got a free agent contract with the 49ers after that. And then he played for the Broncos, and he's always just had that can-do attitude, super energetic, whether it's like working out or business or friendships. And he just, he made probably the best compliment I got after he passed away was a good friend of mine called me and expressed his sympathy and everything. And he said, "Hey man, I only met him once or twice, but both times I met him, he just made me feel like I was his best friend." And he was just so interested in everybody's life and so positive, and always just, you never saw him be negative. And he was just always so positive about everything, and just hard charger at everything he did. So, if you could capture just a little bit of that energy, it's just, he always kind of, I guess what rubbed off on me is just, hard work, always having a good attitude. And he's just a tremendous person.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think the brand is just exploding out there. I think of you in that story every time I see it. So thanks for sharing.
No, thank you for asking. I really appreciate that.
That was a fun little rabbit hole to go down. So COVID hits now a year ago, and nobody knows what the future is going to hold at that time. I remember Newsom announcing that basically the state's going to come to a standstill. Container ships are stacked up outside ports. It's just a very, very unusual time. What the CTA do for their members in that time, and how did you all as a group go about trying to assess what the right steps were to take?
No, I can talk for, I know we don't have much time, but I could talk for a long time about this. That was probably, in all my years at CTA, the busiest myself and my team and government affairs was. I mean, you'd think that, everything's shut down, but that industry was, identified as a essential business to make sure that products and goods and services were, products were on the shelves, the essential goods and services were there. And we were extremely busy with just all sorts of stuff to be able to make sure that these folks, the industry was able to continue to operate. We worked extensively with state agencies, in particular the Department of Motor Vehicles and Caltrans and the CHP on waivers and adding flexibility for drivers' hours of service and whatnot. I mean, it was ongoing. There's just so many things that you just don't think, like for one, you just don't think that a pandemic's ever going to hit. And here it is, there's a pandemic that hits. So it's like, okay, well, wow, we have to start looking into flexibility for the industry to make sure that people at home are being able to get, toilet paper and food and, all those essential items. And so I really have to tip my hat to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Everybody over the years is like, oh, DMV this, DMV that. But we've enjoyed, since I've been at CTA, at least I've enjoyed a great working relationship with them. But I got to hand it to them over, the meetings we had, because they started shutting down their field offices. And that impacted the industry was significant because you have to get drivers through the system. You have to get their CDLs renewed. You have to get new drivers to be able to take tests and get their CDLs so they can start driving. And with the mass buying and surge buying of everything, you had to make sure that there's enough trucks to be able to move products during the start of the pandemic. And so we worked with DMV. We were made aware of an issue by our members who operate truck driving schools, that these office closures, like, they couldn't get their drivers through. So there's a program that the DMV has and offers to trucking companies or bus companies that have their own driver training programs in place. It's called the Employer Training Program, the ETP program. And one of the items is you can pretty much do about 75% of everything outside of having to deal with the DMV if you're a member of the ETP program. And with the field offices closed, drivers who were almost at the finish line of getting their CDL could not go to the DMV to take what they call their skills test, which is their knowledge test, because by law, only the DMV, the state licensing agency, can proctor those exams. So we worked extensively with the DMV to get a federal waiver. And in all my years at CTA, I don't think we've ever gotten a federal waiver or been a part of a federal waiver, but we were able to get a federal waiver through the DMV efforts and our members helping out on providing information on this. And the federal waiver essentially allows companies that are part of the ETP program, and we're talking large trucking companies. These are the large national trucking companies that we count as a lot of them as members. They had the ability and do have the ability, because they're operating under the waiver, to test those drivers, to proctor those exams, be subject to an audit. And it's worked out tremendously. And this is something that actually we are working on trying to become permanent. So a permanent fixture in the licensing, process of getting drivers. So it's been a waiver that has been extended through multiple times, but it's extended through May 31st. And we're consistently working with the DMV and other folks on trying to get this to become a permanent fixture. Also, the processes of, working with the DMV on streamlining so many of their processes, making them a lot more efficient. We've been, working with them extensively on changing a lot of that stuff. I do have to tip my hat to their new director. He's been on the job actually for a little while now, Steve Gordon, who comes from a technology background. And he wants to essentially look at ways that if we don't need to have people come into the office and take up time at the DMV office, why not embrace and utilize technology? And so I think you're seeing that in so many different forms of fashion, at least with our industry on, they open up their virtual field office so you can conduct some certain transactions. And then, they're just trying to streamline so much different things. And I think, you look at, I don't want to minimize and push down anything about the pandemic, because it's just terrible of what's been going on and, loss of lives and everything. But you kind of have to look at things outside the box when things are closing and look at the ways of how the state and agencies have been conducting business for so long. And I think they're taking a huge landscape look at wow, if this ever happens again, where we are subject to office closures, how are we going to service our customers? We need to start looking at ways of streamlining these things, making it more efficient, utilize technology. And, we've been working with Caltrans on automating their transportation permit process, which I'll go a little bit in the weeds on this, is if you are a extra legal oversized carrier. So when you see that truck slowly going down the road with a huge space shuttle or windmill tower, they are subject to getting a permit through Caltrans before they can move that product. And for years, they've been looking at trying to do a fully automated system, transportation permit system. And so the CTA, have been supporting that effort for 15 years. And I think it's been making headway, because they had to close their offices multiple times during the pandemic. And then folks weren't able to get their permits. And so you start looking at, okay, well, what are our options? And so now I think they're taking a huge look into transitioning to a fully automated transportation permit program, which would be huge for that segment of the industry. So those are just a couple of examples, but that requires it's just super busy time on working with these agencies, trying to get these things extended. We did as an association, and we still do. We started having standing monthly meetings with the Secretary of the California Transportation Agency, Secretary Kim, and his staff. We were doing them every other week at the start of the pandemic. Now we meet once a month, and it's a good forum to kind of share information, issues, see what we can work on together. And that's key to have that type of relationship with the transportation agency that oversees California Highway Patrol, Caltrans, Department of Motor Vehicles. Those are all the agencies that, we have to work with. And we're just really appreciative of the state's efforts on working with the trucking industry to make sure that, people during this time have been able to get their products.
So it sounds like, COVID hits and there's a lot of obstacles, and you worked with the team to, in all the different agencies to look for opportunities. It sounds like you're finding opportunities in this to make things better. What was, right when things hit, what was going through your mind of, what's going to happen? And then how did you galvanize the team?
Well, I was actually, when the actual COVID hearings were happening on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., CTA had their Call on Washington, which is, the lobby day for ATA puts on this great program called Call on Washington, and they allow their state trucking associations under the federation to come and, go meet with their elected officials that are California congressional representatives, taking the sites at Washington, D.C. So we were there right when this started happening. And when the hearings were going on, and actually the day before we were flying out, they had the hearings. And we, myself and some of our members, we were on the same flight coming back. And I remember we were flying out of Baltimore, and we started seeing the delayed. And I look at one of my members and I'm thinking, hope we get home. And he says, well, my daughter lives here, and we've already asked her if we can use her car to drive home. So you can hitch a ride with us if we can't get a flight home. So I was thinking, wow, we might actually have to drive home, but we didn't. We were actually able to get on the plane, wheels up. But yeah, as we got back, and then the next day I was in the office and the notification came out that California was shutting down. So, after that, you're just kind of like, okay, well, I live in a rural area, so I had to make sure, since we're telecommuting, that I had, the capacity to be able to work from home, which I pay for a premium internet service up there, but it's sub-premium service, go figure. But so we just, you just start scrambling around to start, okay, well, how is this going to impact the industry? What do we need to do? And so, Chris Shimoda and myself and, Sean Yaden, our CEO, we just constant contact on stuff, constant contact and engagement on so many different things. And it was just like a moving target. Like you don't account for these things that just, you start seeing things shutting down and, okay, how's this going to have an impact? You can't account for that until this happens, and it happened. And so you have to start looking at ways to be able to make sure that your members that you're representing are, able to continue to operate. And we also, I do have to give a shout out to Cal OES, the state, which is the Office of Emergency Services. We worked extremely close with them on distributing face masks, hand sanitizers to our members. I mean, if you looked at our training room, which is down around the hall from me, it looked like a warehouse. I mean, there's just boxes and boxes. And so we worked extensively with our membership to get the sanitizers and the face masks and everything, the face coverings to them, so they could, make sure that they could continue to operate and continue to be able to transport the much needed goods that folks needed.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome to watch you guys jump into action and just, rise to the occasion. Is
busiest I've ever been at CTA, and it's amazing how much you can't, like I said, you just can't account for these things to happen, and there's no playbook for it. There's just, okay, well, let's jump into it and get it done.
Awesome. Well, I think we're to that point of the segment where we're going to transition over to rapid fire. My horse is?
My horse? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Is a pain in the, you know what, and a waste? No. Worthless.
I'm most passionate about the work that I do because.
In one word?
Because of, yes.
The industry, our members.
I would describe the CTA culture as?
Fantastic.
My first car was a?
'68 Mustang Fastback GT that was restored.
Okay. All right. So I know there's a story behind this one and the license plate on it. So why don't let's break rapid fire real quick and have you tell that story.
Oh, so you're talking about the Prelude, the biggest bonehead decision I ever made. So my dad restored a '68 Fastback for me, and he restored a '71 convertible Malibu for my brother. These things were just perfect. And that was my first car. And I got out of high school and I didn't think it was cool anymore. And so I wanted to get a cool car. And so I wanted to get a Prelude because they had the pop-up lights. And I thought those were so cool, had a sunroof. So I get rid of the Mustang and I go to buy a Prelude. And my dad and I are at the guy's house where I'm buying it from. And he gives me the keys and the guy says, "Hey, I hope you don't have a girlfriend." And I said, "Well, why's that?" And he said, "You see the license plate?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, go take a look." So I go out there and I look and it says LKN, the number 4, WMN. And I'm thinking, my little brain with the mouse on the hamster wheels going, what does this mean? And he goes, "Looking for women." And I'm like, oh God. Yeah, I did have a girlfriend at the time. So I did have to get rid of the license plate. I gave it to one of my buddies and he hung it up in his bedroom at his apartment he lived at. So it was hanging up in his room. But yeah, "Looking for women" was the license.
I'm sure the DMV is really proud of you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I got rid of it. So yeah.
All right. Playtime outside of work is what?
Well, I live in the country, so we have property, always constantly working on stuff. During the pandemic, we built a huge wood shed. We built a fence. We did so much stuff. I split wood, a lot of wood. Like working on the property. Enjoy tinkering on my 71 Bronco. Enjoy spending time with my dogs. Enjoy traveling when I can. Obviously, I haven't been able to for a while now, so I'm looking forward to, going somewhere when we're able to. Just getting out and about, being with friends and family. Going to sporting events. Love going to sporting events, which unfortunately I haven't been able to for quite some time. But yeah, I just like to do a lot of stuff.
That's great. So 2021 is going to be for Eric is going to be the year of
getting old, turning 50, being at CTA 20 years.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. No, I still got a lot of fire in my belly on representing the industry. But yeah, it's interesting year for me. I'm hitting a couple of big milestones in my life. So hopefully it's good. I think it will be. But yeah, should be a wild ride.
I look forward to celebrating with you at a Padre game.
Yeah, I've got that on the calendar. We're going, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to jump me and rephrase it as a Giants game, but we're going to sit on the Padre side.
Hey, but the Giants, they're I think 12-7. I think they've thrown 5 shutouts already this year. I mean, who would have thought? They do have 3 championship rings, which I don't think you guys have any. You did throw your first no-hitter, so congratulations. We did have one Giant, Tim Lincecum, that threw 2 himself. But no, hey, I like the Padres. I think the ballpark, the team. I love watching the Padres play. I'm just a sportsman. I love sports. And if my teams aren't doing well, I will still watch sports.
Knowing what you know now, and I know you reflected a little bit on your friend, your good friend who passed away. What kind of advice would you give to yourself, 20, 30 years ago, given what you know today?
Work hard, and it's kind of Pollyannish, I guess, by saying some of these things. But I was like to have fun when I was growing up, and I always appreciated my dad's work ethic and his integrity. And he actually founded Vision Service Plan, VSP, the optical company. It's international. He founded their optical lab and was an executive with them for, I think, 27 years. Never saw him miss a day of work. Rarely took vacations until later on. just always worked hard. And, it took a while for me to get there, at least before CTA, of, hey, work hard, always focus on getting the prize, do the best you can, lead by, example and whatnot. And, just kind of staying with it. And, there's work hard, play hard kind of mentality and stuff, but, always do what you can and put your best foot forward. I know it sounds kind of cliche what I'm saying, but, just always kind of treat people with respect. My dad had just high integrity, and I could never match the man he was, but he was, a lot of him rubbed off on me, and he passed away, 12, 13 years ago. And so, miss him, wish he was still around, but, I think he'd be proud of me.
Living by the golden rule. I'm no doubt he would be. One of the key things we want viewers to be able to walk away from is to understand what makes the CTA different and special. Like I see it. We're involved with other associations, and you can feel the pulse and the energy that is unique and different about the CTA. In your words, what is that? Like, what makes you guys so different from other associations?
I think the engagement on so many issues, and we're always on top of the issues. We're always going to be working those issues. Being here for 20 years and Chris being here 14, so you got 34 years between us. I don't want to say there isn't anything we haven't seen, but we've seen everything, a lot of stuff. And so we're always going to be engaged. But the flip side of that is engagement from your membership. And we have a very engaged membership. And they are the experts. And so we learn from them on how these things are going to impact their operations. So we really lean on them to provide us with, hey, how's this going to impact you? I think the benefit of being a member of the CTA is being in the know. You can't ignore the fact you're in California, and like it's, you have to be aware of what's going on. There's always going to be some proposals or regulations that are going to have some sort of impact for better or worse on your industry and on the trucking industry in particular. And so always, being engaged. And what we do quite a bit is provide our members with so much information and updates on all of these things. And when there's abilities and ability to engage our members and have them tell their story, because I always say when we have our meetings with legislators, they don't care to meet with me. They want to meet with our members. The members are the ones that are employing so many people and providing so much jobs throughout the state within the trucking industry. They're the ones that have the story that can tell how this is going to impact me. And so what the CTA, there's a lot of other organizations out there. They all do a good job for their members. They wouldn't be in existence if they didn't. But I see, myself and Chris and Sean and just the entire team, we're always engaged on so many different issues. And, when I see members that, sometimes, members will drop from the association, and when someone says, oh, I don't see any benefits or I don't know what they do, I have no problem picking up the phone and calling whoever that member is and saying, hey, well, can you explain a little bit about that? Were you not aware of, this and that? And a lot of times when you have those conversations with those members, they say, wow, I didn't know that. You guys are engaged in a lot of issues, and I did not know that. And so always making sure that your members are aware of what's going on so they can, adjust or kind of, sit around the table and, their conference rooms and say, okay, well, how are we going to be able to adjust and, continue to thrive and succeed? And it's difficult. It's a highly regulated state. There's a lot of regulations on, a lot of hurdles. But you can't ignore the amount of customers that this state provides our members. There's millions of people that live in the state of California. So that means a million people are going to be buying stuff, having homes built or, projects being worked on, materials needed for that. And so there's always going to be that customer, but it is, difficult to be able to, adjust to some of these things that that are thrown at them. So, but yeah, I hope I answered it correctly on the benefits of being a member of the CTA. There's just, there's always, being at the table and being able to make decisions is key, and it's crucial, especially in the world of associations.
Well, as an outsider, I mean, I see it at every meeting I'm at. There's things that I'm learning and I'm seeing trucking companies take advantage of. So I agree 100%. Well, that's it, brother. Any parting words for the audience before we part ways?
I thought you guys wanted to hear my most embarrassing story ever, Miami Vice story.
I'm so glad you brought it up.
That's the parting words.
Okay, you guys want to hear it?
Yeah,
let's do it.
Okay, this is my most embarrassing moment. I was just mortified as a child from this. So
I like that. Usually we have to drag this out of people.
I love this stuff because it goes with what you say about best dressed and, he's, careful of what I wear, trying to be the trendsetter kind of guy or whatever. But back when Miami Vice came out, I thought Don Johnson was the coolest guy. So I had my mom take me to Country Club Mall, which doesn't exist anymore. And we went around to so many different stores to get the Don Johnson outfit. So we went to Chess King to get the white jacket. We went to Miller's Outpost to get the lavender gray striped short sleeve shirt. We went to Genera to get Genera white pants to match the jacket. And then we went to Kinney Shoes to get the espadrille shoes that Don Johnson wore. So I had that. And then, of course, the Ray-Bans. So I had the whole Don Johnson outfit picked out. Was so excited to wear it at the dress down day or free dress day at presentation school, and got on my mountain bike with the Don Johnson outfit, rode the mountain bike past a high school, Mariloma High School, which is down the road from my parents' house, rode up to presentation, parked my bike. You have to line up before you enter the class. So we line up and everyone's just laughing at me. Literally laughing at me. And I thought here I was so cool. And so I, got all upset and I'm like, I don't feel good. So I went down to the nurse's office, said I had to go home. I wasn't feeling well. So I got back on the mountain bike, rode past the high school, and Mariloma, they used to have this area where people would cut class. It was across the street from the high school. It's called Stoner's Corner. Yeah. And so these rockers and kids that were cutting class were standing on the corner. And I'm riding my mountain bike by and they're laughing at me and they're calling me nerd and geek and they're throwing olives from the olive tree at me and rocks at me. And I just get home. My mom's like, what happened? And I said, I hate this outfit. Why'd you buy this for me? Can't believe you made me wear this. And she's just like, you wanted it. And so my mom actually ended up keeping the coat. She wore it with her outfits. The shoes became my lawnmower shoes. And that was my Don Johnson, Miami Vice, most embarrassing moment of my life.
That's great.
That's great. I grew up in Carmichael too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went to high school at Rio.
Oh, no way. When'd you graduate?
95.
You did? Wow. A lot of my friends went there. I graduated from El Camino in 90. And so Rio, they were in the CVC back at the time, the Capital Valley Conference. They were one of our big rivals, but no offense, they weren't really a rival till I think it was 1990, 91 when they had that really good team. A lot of my friends went to Rio. Friend of mine, Sam Allen, went there. He got a full ride scholarship for hoops to Washington. And then Rio also had Mike Flanagan that played at UCLA and the Packers for a long time. Yeah, they had some good athletes there. It's a great area to grow up in too.
Grew up probably near where your mom was because my house was Walnut and Angle.
I grew up right around the corner from there. You know where Pasadena Elementary School was?
Yeah.
My mom taught there for 24 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. How many embarrassing stories end in a Don Johnson suit with olives being thrown at you?
Oh, you want to hear a did you know, interesting tidbit of where I grew up? So when we first moved in, across the street, 3 houses down to to the right, Richard Chase. Did you ever hear about Richard Chase? He was the first, like, in Sacramento region, like mass a killer. They called him I think the vampire killer. It was during the 70s, during the crazy time with all those, killers and everything. But he grew, when we moved in there, his family was moving out. My mom bought his tricycle. So I had his tricycle when I was a kid.
So when you're going off the deep end, we'll blame the tricycle.
Yeah. Look it up.
Influenced.
Like, it was he.
All right, man.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. You owe me dinner at Born and Raised or Kettner Exchange.
I was thinking the long story. No,
we'll go there for drinks. I don't want to. No, we'll just grab a couple drinks.
Born and Raised or Kettner Exchange it is.
Sounds good. Okay, guys.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Appreciate it.
You too.